There are not many options. You can't raise many ways of raising capital. So if in US or in Europe you have 20 ways of raising, you probably have 3 or 4 ways of raising here by practical compulsions. Okay. So clearly the widening and deepening the pond is an important and big issue in front of India. Okay. As we go along, the financial market in US versus GDP may be many times more, multiples as compared to India. So clearly we have a big issue there. And one of our success factors in future will depend on how big, how fast, how broad and how deep we make the market. Okay.
Sure.
So we issued a 50-year bond. And do you believe it is the first time that was 50-year bullet repayment bond? This is the first time it was issued in India. So I mean, and it's so logical that we should be able to issue that kind of things.
Sure.
But it was never done. It was the first time it was done because we and Yes Bank decided that we want to create a category. Otherwise, it didn't exist. So that is how shallow the market is. So we need to deepen. So obviously, what's the option available to a person to exit or to create wealth? Let me ask that question. One way is to think of it as creation of wealth. It's a wealth creation opportunity. Okay. So if you list, then the overall wealth of this goes away. Even if I don't sell my share, I still know my wealth is, I've created wealth for myself. It's now 10x. Yeah?
Right.
Okay. So if a 58 rupees Satyam share, and then I merge it, and now it's a listed company, it's 580 rupees, it's 10x. I've created wealth. At 20x, I've created wealth. So that's becomes very clear, and some of them can clearly exit. So IPO is the easiest route available. But is it the best route? Always. You asked the question and you answered it as well. It may not be. It depends on what frame time you are in. Okay. So now for a minute, leave that and say, what is the other option I have? Other option I have is to take money from a PE.
Right.
Okay. Then I was having a conference only few days back, and the gentleman who spoke in from RBI actually had a big issue which he wanted to put in front of us. That today valuation is like passing the pillow. So everybody is today valuing at 10 million. He's passing on the pillow to guy who values 20 million and then 40 million. He says, I don't know what will happen when the music stops. Okay. Yeah. And this is a clear issue. So the other option which is available there, let us stop with Mithun. Okay. So the problem, this is his issue. Okay. So in this, what is the other option available is another PE. Hopefully that mission. So what is he going to? He is going to come with lots of caveats, how you operate. I'll get involved. I want a board seat. I will write so many affirmative rights. Yeah. So these all comes with this. So between these two, unless there are other things which are having, these are the things available.
Sure.
But today, given the situation, and then there is a third one available, which is you can always go to a TVS or Mahindra and say, I want to be part of the larger platform. Or Malayalam Manorama. So you can, these are the few chances which are available. But we are stuck between smaller option. If you are in US, you could do a, what is that, below the counter trading or above the counter trading, and you can have debt options of many. Right. You can have, subordinated, you can have class B. Yeah, all that kind of things, many things could exist.
Sure.
Sorry, long answer.
So I'm just going to completely agree with him. You need basically multiple sources of long-term capital, especially bond market. Just to put a perspective, the Indian bond market as a percentage of GDP, I think is in the 20s.
Right.
If you go to some place like say Malaysia, it's 40% of the GDP. So clearly debt equity, and I just of course want to pitch for private equity and say that over the last 4 years, private equity is equal to FDI.
Yeah.
So, and having said that, I want to go against private equity and also basically say that if you need $500–600 billion of capital every year in India, debt plus equity, which is typically what the ratios will tell you,
True.
Private equity only provides 15 billion. So it's not really for the majority, it's for a small minority.
Yeah.
Just to make that little point.
Yeah.
I think my view is on exits, which is where you started, two types of things. One is private equity VC exits. Private equity VC investment is about hope for the next 5 to 7 years. If 5 to 7 years later, like in the UPA regime, the reality was not what it was made out to be, there is a clear clash.
Right.
Because then what's happening, hitting your head into the roof. but you expected the roof to grow multifold. But suddenly the roof didn't grow, the ceiling is too low, you got your head hit, which is why you got the accumulated backlog of VCP issues, because the economy didn't grow to suck up all these companies, right? So I think that is a big issue, and I think currently the way we're going, it looks like the ceiling will, keep on going. So we don't have to worry about crashing into the ceiling.
now,
Exits will
not
happen,
yet.
yeah. Because people are rushing to India. There is really no other market practically other than US, India, and China. Triad was a book in the 1980s written by a McKinsey consultant which said, Japan, Europe, and America will rule the world. Guess what? It changed.
Yeah.
That's also been disrupted. It's now China, India, and America.
Sure.
Second thing I want to say is about public market exits. I think it's the same issue. People expected far more liquidity, and also there is this FOMO, right, which is the friend of Tina, which we all know lives in this room. So in the FOMO model, if you are an entrepreneur and you went for a whatever YI event or a YPO event or a CI event and say, "Arey, tera company list nahi hua kya?"
Exactly.
It's like that became a huge fashion. So people went, and government also, the SEBI made it easy to list, which I think they should actually. So I think you have a catch up there to do, and therefore delisting is very crucial. So I fully agree with the point you made. I'm not really sure you need a market like second market. I think today the SME vision of SEBI, I think, is completely shall we say, what's the right word? People haven't understood it. Yeah. It's a very, very powerful system that SEBI has come out with. And I think we have enough smart people in the country, they will catch on to it. They've actually said, without really assessing your risks, I'm going to go ahead and let you list. But guess what I'm going to do? I'm only going to allow institutions and accredited investors to invest.
Right.
So these are the guys, if they lose their money, well, that's their bad luck.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well,
and they are informed investors. I mean, they are not
They've
retail.
done that with the, I mean, this can address prospective or new companies which are seeking to,
So there's a history,
the baggage still needs to be
there's a
fixed.
baggage issue which Modi keeps talking about, saying he says there's a itihasic problem, as he calls it. I don't know what the word for problem in Hindi is.
Sure.
And then there is basically
Samasya.
the new issue. So I think fundamentally the SEBI Smart Startup Exchange is going to be a game changer for India. And this accredited investor is going to be a pivot for this whole thing, because unless we can identify the investor, there's going to be a giant crashing sound in 2 to 3 years when many of the angel funded companies fail.
Right.
I think there's going to be something called the angel scam, which is going to come soon.
Yeah.
Because somebody got lucky, they gave money to Mithun. But for every guy who gave money to Mithun, there are 19 people who were just feeling good and wanting to do the right thing and wanting to make money.
Right.
And some of them shouldn't be doing it because they're not having the net worth to say, this is 5% of my funds. I'm happy to, what I do angel investing, I write it to zero the dime I write the check.
Right.
So so I think those kind of issues will also come when accredited investors become possible. This is why we need the government, because the government is not willing to tell us each person's tax status. We can never know who is an AI. Sure. So Aadhaar for investors is what AI will become in India.
Okay, that's a great point. And we hope that the SMA exchange really takes off. And personally speaking, given the amount of time I have invested in writing to SEBI with suggested changes, we also hope that delisting regulations take off, because
This is a great point.
Yeah, that's
I think
a big
existing, there's a lot of inefficiency trapped and listed in the stock exchanges today, which has no business being there.
Yeah, we can't just keep wind down any company. That's another issue that
That's
we have.
another issue, absolutely. Now let me get views from Mithun.
I'm just a shopkeeper who hasn't figured any of this out, so I'm happy to just listen to this and defer the question away.
Okay.
I think Partha and Gopal have really explained it very well. I don't think we need to add on to that.
In terms of exchanges.
Audience question.
Yeah, and I think it's natural progression, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we're still in very early stages, and as the startup economy kind of pushes and moves on, it's going to evolve, and we seem to have a government who's at least listening. I don't know how much they're doing, but they're listening. So I think it's a part of progression, natural part of progression, second markets and delisting. So I think I'm not very concerned about that. I think there are enough people who are talking about it, and I think there is going to be progression.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for a wonderful session. I think the great thoughts were raised. I think we will now open the floor to questions from the audience. We have the seats. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Suhas, and I'm one of the founding employees of a company called
Now
as...
we can.
Louder.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm one of the founding employees for a company called as Sprinkler. We are a startup unicorn, valuating at 1.2 billion. It's a social software company. And currently our products and services are not available in India. Right? So my question to Gopal, Mr. Gopal and Parthasarathy is to understand what is that key element you look into when you're understanding the market maturity in APAC region.
Sorry, what is that you are asking?
The key element you look into when you are actually expanding your product or services in APAC region as a market maturity.
Okay. So can I just test understanding that what you want to do is that if you want to expand into products or services into the APAC region,
Exactly.
what should you be looking to?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And this could be traditional product as well as digital, right? Okay. Obviously, digital is far more easier. I can only, if it is digital, all I have to say is that I have to kind of make sure about two things. One, the government allows it, because without that people can't say, and then I make enough noise about that product and service being available on the net, and then hope that customers catch on. But if I'm looking at any market, what first I would say is that I have a 3-step process of figuring this out. This is a traditional model. What I implemented when I went global as a CEO of all global operations. So first is product market fit. Okay. So first check out whether there is a product and market fit to yours. I mean, basically, if I'm saying, just take an example of tractors. If I'm going to Iran, then is that market has enough market potential and is my product matching? For example, I cannot go ever to Europe. I mean, you said APAC, but I'm broad basing it because the tractors are all above 100 horsepower and my tractors are all 60 horsepower. So that's product market fit. Second is market size. Is there potential? And that's obvious, so I'm not spending too much time on this. And the third one is price earning. Yeah. So are you going to go there and earn some money out of it or not? So if you pass these 3 filters, whatever then said, straightforward metrics, but if you had to do it, I would, in a process term, I would suggest you do what is I call as a, strategy chessboard. Put all the, variables on one side and all the countries on the other side, and try to put that, whatever that chessboard which shows you where your king comes out or your queen comes out are the territories to go to. So in a very broad manner.
We should go to the next question.
We'll go to the next one. Okay. There's a question for Mithun. So, can India grow? Sorry, that's not the question. So the question for you, Mithun, is, do people in tier 2 and tier 3 cities consider buying online jewelry as safe? And how do you deal with that perceptional problem? Yeah.
It's the people. I mean, you got to break that data down. City is a very, very large data point as such. And there are individuals in metros who don't consider it safe, and there are individuals in tier 2, 3, and even beyond that, because it's not just about, I think somewhere credibility has to get established and then safety then gets assumed. It's the job that we are supposed to do to make them feel safe about it. The second part of it, access for them is weak, and thus this becomes a good viable option to look at and do this thing. So, but there are still more people who don't buy jewelry online than there are who buy online. So that's the part that excites me a lot also.
Okay. Yeah. Question for you, Gopal, is, can India grow in the present scenario of strikingly high corporate debt, low profitability, and dangerous NPA figures?
I think basically there is a very big merit to that point, that fundamentally what we've inherited from the past, especially in certain sectors where they've got 50,000, 30,000 crores, I think the question I would ask is, I would get guided by the way India is dealing with the problem rather than the problem itself. So the way India is dealing with the problem with the government we have and the outstanding Reserve Bank governor we have, I would say is very positive. They're taking public sector bank chairman role seriously. They're separating, they're putting very talented MDs in charge. The strategic debt restructuring program of the government which actually, I don't know whether many people are aware that today the bank can take over 51% of your company by press of a button, bring a private equity or a stressed asset fund manager to take over management, take you out. In fact, taking you out is a mandatory condition in the SDR. And 7 companies it has happened with debt of more than 5 to 10,000 crores. So I think the way we're dealing with it, I think there is a future. It's a tough problem. So you're asking a person who's not yet advanced cancer, but can this cancer be cured? I think we have a very great set of doctors and medicines right now.
Sure. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a question for Gopal. So this new Companies Act that came out, not exactly new, 1 year ago, do you call it micromanaging or macromanaging? You know, something that's set up for 20 years down the line, or something that's interfering in the way business are run? So it's open to both.
I think
Gopal's
Partha will have you. My limited view is fundamentally it's a huge missed opportunity. This could have been an opportunity to simplify life for MSME. You know, in India, we know that 92% of jobs actually come from own account companies, own account enterprises, and MSMEs. And really, in my way, this has been like the curse on the MSMEs. I think the good news again is that they seem to be wanting to fix it. This law was made for large companies. So like he said, women directors, I think great ideas. Some of the stuff they've enforced on boards, while we find it onerous, are actually very good for the long term. We have to accept that. But for the larger part of India, gosh, this is basically like asking every chaiwala to now run on SAP as a ERP system.
Yeah. I think he summarized this beautifully. So I mean, it is not micromanaging, but the intent was great, but the onerous responsibilities has made it go even beyond what US kind of does. You know, it's very good for the investors, especially. They want us go to, you know, companies out with IFRS will actually make India on par in terms of disclosure with everybody. That's great. But if you start micromanaging MSME, that's not great.
Yeah.
So,
and as a transactional lawyer, I would have to agree, because most of the transactions that we used to do, there has become an added compliance cost and there's an added timeline. So I don't understand where venture capital fund is putting money into a startup. The process should be really quick. It should be like 2 clicks, like you said, right? It should be I'm just issuing them, signing the agreement and funding. Whereas it's become a long drawn debate on whether it's a rights issue, whether it should be a preferential allotment. Nobody cares. Yeah. And it really need not be such a debated issue. So I think in some ways it needs to be simple.
And they have a toxic weapon for all of you called 56B2, right? Of the Income Tax Act. Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Anybody else?
I have a question for Partha and Gopal. What do you think about SEBI's move to allow startups to list, and for the benefit of the startups here, how do you think startups must look at it?
Gopal, you want to answer? Yeah. Sorry, his question was, you already partly answered it.
Yeah.
So they are allowing startups to list now, SEBI. What do you think about that? And what is the second part of the question?
So how do startups look at it? As in,
Okay. How should startup look at it?
Yeah.
No, I think basically what SEBI is doing is creating, in my mind, a mezzanine floor between a listed company and a VCP funded company. So look at what they've said. First is this company must have an institutional investor present in the company. So they know that some level of governance, etc. has taken place. Second thing they've said is, we are not going to impose any judgmental norms on you. Well, so if your valuation is revenue, its valuation is a multiple of GMV, whether it's a number of people that are signing up each year, whether the cohort is remaining stable, the churn is not high, they're leaving all that to you. Say, you go figure it out. So they've given a lot of flexibility, which I think is extremely unusual.
Yeah.
Right? Remember, 23 or so, or whatever the number of unicorns plus decacorns in America, remember that post Google, Facebook, not one is listed. So America has got this kind of huge fossilized unicorns stroke decacorns hanging around. So we actually should look at this regulation and say, wow, this is amazing. This is like way ahead of the US, right? And I'm not sure this should be a benchmark. People should, 10 years, say, wow, this is way ahead of India. We have to get to that place. The third thing they've done is fundamentally saying that only knowledgeable investors who can afford to lose the money should be allowed to participate.
Yeah.
So in in Vijay's words, Mithun should be allowed to participate. So fundamentally, that I think is fantastic. It's like a VC fund, right? If you put money in a VC fund, it goes to zero. You say, sorry, chum, bad luck. That's what you should be told. Of course, the VC will never try to let you do that because, as we know, VC funds rarely lose money. But fundamentally, I think the key issue is great. I think it means a lot of things to start up, but think of it as a mezz. Don't think of it as the first floor. So ground floor should be still angel funding, your own funding, VC funding, Series A, Series B. But before you go to the public market, they've provided you a mezz platform. I think it's just amazing. I can't believe it's something like Aadhaar. We underestimate Aadhaar. Whatever you give credit for Aadhaar, you still underestimate it. Yeah. Same way, I think this works the same way.
Yeah. So just to say, give a quick this one. Till now it was from Papa to PE. Now he's opened one more category. Yeah, beyond that.
Well put.
Yeah. Any other questions, please?
There's some other things.
Time is up, he says. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes. I think we'll take just 2 more questions, this one and one after that. I think you had a question, right? Okay.
My name is Yusuf. I run an environmental business in Coimbatore. Just a few months back, I attended an environmental conference where the theme of the conference was it's virtually impossible to have infinite growth in a finite planet. And here I am at Growth Hack, and where everyone seems to be obsessed with growth without really talking about the consequences. So should I stop attending conferences, or is there a middle way for this?
I think clearly you're making a case for lack of growth in conferences in the future.
So to you.
Question.